These scenes from Fury are often said to be the best tank battle in Hollywood history. But how close are they to reality? Right now, you're about to witness some of the most intense tank battles from the war in Ukraine, all caught on camera. And along the way, you'll find out what's wrong with that movie scene, and what really happens inside a tank when it's hit by a shell or a kamikaze drone. Fire! Here's a Ukrainian Leopard 2A6, sitting at an intersection in the open plains, facing off against two Russian tanks. One shot, direct hit. The Ukrainian crew reacted instantly, and both Russian tanks quickly retreated. But how did one of the Russian tanks survive a direct hit? The Leopard uses two main types of ammunition. The DM-53 with a tungsten carbide core can penetrate up to 1,000 millimeters of armor depending on the range. That's what can happen when a shot doesn't quite reach its target. The high-explosive anti-tank rounds, which can pierce 480 millimeters of armor. But the Leopard also had a DM-11, a high-explosive fragmentation round meant for infantry. It's likely the Ukrainian Leopard was all set to deal with Russian soldiers. But then, surprise, a couple of Russian tanks showed up. No time to switch ammo, so the DM-11 was sent on its way. Give us a thumbs up if you think the crew made the right call. And let's be honest, it scared the Russian tanks. But hey, not every tank duel happens from miles away. Sometimes it's up close and personal. Take this Ukrainian T-64BV for example. It obliterated a Russian T-72B3 at point-blank range. The first shot was deadly, but the Ukrainian crew fired again to make sure it was over. How did they get so close? Chances are, the Ukrainian crew spotted the Russian tank early, and the commander decided to make a risky flank maneuver to hit them from the side. This was a bold move, but it's known that the old T-64BVs are operated by some of the most experienced crews in the Ukrainian army. In reality, tank duels are rare in Ukraine due to the widespread use of drones and active counter-battery fire. When tanks from opposing sides meet in battle, it's either by accident or poor mission planning. That's why these clips are so rare. But there's more to the story of this 15-minute battle. This was the first tank battle for a 25-year-old Ukrainian commander with the call sign Czech. Second, just minutes before the duel, a kamikaze drone with a shaped charge hit the side of the Ukrainian tank. Thankfully, reactive armor saved the crew. Third, Czech initially spotted two Russian tanks. The third was only visible once the smoke from the firefight cleared. That tank tried to flee, but Czech's tank shot it in the rear. Fourth, only after the battle did Czech learn that these were T-80 tanks, faster and with better fire control systems than his T-72, but that didn't help the Russian tankers. Now the burning question: how does real tank combat differ from the Fury scene? Alright, the tankers from the 53rd Brigade watched the movie too, and they're here to break it all down. Commander Czech was especially outraged by the Tiger's character. Yep, that guy who went straight into a head-on attack against Brad Pitt's tanks, and here's why. I don't understand why the Tiger tank came out to face the Shermans. It could have just stayed hidden. The Tiger has better optics and frontal armor. It could have picked them off without even exposing itself. Agree with Commander Czech? Then go ahead and hit that like button. Yes, modern fire control systems sometimes give Russian tanks an edge, but check out the final moments of this duel between a Russian T-80 and a Ukrainian T-64 that didn't have time to reload. They were less than 30 yards apart. But that's not the full story. The Russian tank was part of a group of 5 armored vehicles covering a rocket artillery unit. The entire group came under fire from Ukrainian artillery and anti-tank missiles. Several Russian tanks never made it off the battlefield. What's it like inside a tank when it's hit? Get ready, because you're about to hear it straight from someone who's been there. A tank commander who lived through it firsthand. When my tank got hit, time seemed to slow down. I saw the shell leave the enemy's barrel, and as it flew toward me, I had time to think about everything, even how the air felt thicker. But you realize there's nothing you can do. You can see this 45-pound chunk of metal and fire flying right at you. Then there's a jolt, and for a few seconds, it feels like you're somewhere else, outside of space and time. But the most epic tank battle happened in the Ukrainian village of Novobasan, about an hour from Kyiv. A single Ukrainian T-72, commanded by 21-year-old Lieutenant Nazar Vernigora, callsign Charlie, took on a column of Russian tanks and armored vehicles. From February 25th to March 5th, 2022, over 1,000 Russian vehicles passed through this area heading towards Kyiv, but within a month, they were forced to retreat. The area's soft, fertile soil made it impossible for Russian forces to move off the highways. In Novobasan, Charlie's tank flanked the Russian column and set up an ambush. We hit them from the side. They were stunned and didn't know what to do. Charlie's tank took cover in the ruins. On one hand, it wasn't the best position because the gunner had a very narrow field of fire. They had a second or two to aim and shoot. Not every round hit its mark. On the other hand, the Russian tankers had an even harder time. They couldn't figure out where the Ukrainian tank was. The weather helped the Ukrainians too. It was raining and snowing. The armor was wet. You couldn't see the pixelated pattern of our camouflage. Only the last tank in the Russian column managed to fire back. The gunner didn't panic and returned fire. Luckily, the last tank was destroyed. If Charlie's tank had been in the open, this battle would have lasted less than a minute, but their mission was to stop and destroy, not to die. And they succeeded. The Russian column was finished off by artillery fire. Novobasan became a graveyard for Russian armor. When journalists arrived, the vehicles were still smoldering. These images prove that true armor is the soldier inside the tank. Tanks are just rusting hunks of metal. But you've got to admit, military luck played a role. Luck was on the side of that Ukrainian guy with the call sign Charlie. By the way, his crew also took out a Russian T-90 Proryev, one of their best tanks. They hit it from a distance. The Proryev was in a fortified position, and Charlie's commander told him, "Don't even try, it's impossible." But the Proryev was knocked out with a single shot. Give this guy a thumbs up if you're wishing him more luck in the future. And as for the commander of the M2 Bradley, someone definitely already gave him a like, because he somehow tapped into some supernatural power in a battle that should have been his last. With less than 70 yards between him and the enemy, he couldn't use the standard tow missile, and the M242 Bushmaster rounds couldn't penetrate tank armor. So what do? Run? Nope. The Ukrainian commander decided to charge. Crazy, right? Well, only if you're scared. But when you keep a cool head, you can actually pull off a win. It looks like the Russians were totally caught off guard by this bold move. No miracles happened though. The 25mm rounds didn't penetrate the armor, but they did smash the targeting equipment on top of the tank, and that did the trick. The mighty Proryev was instantly turned into a metal barrel. Plus, its turret rotation mechanism was damaged. Proryev was defeated, and its awkward dance will go down in the history of this war as a symbol of the human spirit. Lastly, let's show you how awareness, or a complete lack of it, affects tank duels. In this battle, the Ukrainian crew spotted a Russian group first, one tank and two APCs. First shot, and the Russian tank's turret went flying. The APCs decided it was time to bail out fast. And now, an example of extreme carelessness. An APC drove straight toward two Ukrainian tanks. The outcome? Obvious, right? But the real question is, why did the Russian crew act so irrationally? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because we've got plenty more hot battlefield action coming your way.